The release of Legends ZA marks our return to the Kalos region, 12 years after our first outing in the French-inspired Pokemon region. It's time to check in with our old friend Professor Sycamore to take a closer look at what's inside its Pokedex and address some of the community sentiment as to whether its new designs were truly the least memorable of the entire franchise's history. And yes, Alex, I'm looking at you. So how about we make a start on some of the reasons as to why they might be so forgettable. First off, I'm going to address some potential reasons as to why we might perceive this region's Pokedex to be so forgettable, before putting it to the test against my friend Mark by setting each other a challenge to see who can remember the most inside 15 minutes and see if they truly are the most forgettable, before giving some closing thoughts based on our extremely scientific research. So, without further ado, let's get into it, shall we? My first hypothesis, the designs are bad. This is generally what people consider to be forgettable or unmemorable Pokemon. The designs just lack something distinctive to make them stand out, with the best example of this being Greninja. It had a unique spot on Ash's team in the anime, and it became an absolute fan favourite, where a lot of the rest were left in the dust. By that logic, if the Pokemon were good enough, like Greninja, they should all be memorable, but they're not. And whilst it's true that I don't like Aromatisse, or Spritzy, or Swirlix, or Slurpuff, or Diggersby, Binacle, Barbaracle, and Scatterbug. Okay, I'm done now. In their defense, most Pokedexes have their share of bad designs or filler Pokemon. Kanto has Venonat, Venomoth, Fearow, Jinx, and a literal seal. Johto has Smoochum and Tyrogue. Hoenn has Cascoon and Huntail. Sinnoh has Cherrim and Combee. You get my point. Kalos actually has a huge swath of great designs like the Legendaries, Greninja, and so many others. And in case you were interested in some of my other favourites from this region, you can check out one of my first videos I did on this exact topic. Of course, once you're done with this one. And with all this being said, I don't necessarily think that the perceived lack of memorability comes from weak designs, because overall, I really don't think it's that bad. Building on this idea of Pokemon being bad, making them forgettable, my second hypothesis is that Generation 6 has a lack of competitive prowess. And I know exactly what you're thinking. Anyone who played Generation 6 competitive is probably getting PTSD from Gale Wings Talonflame, Protean Greninja, and Geomancy Power Herb Xerneas. But because of the severe backlash from all these overpowered abilities and tactics, they were either heavily counter-teamed in Xerneas' case, meaning it never got its hands on an elusive championship, or, in the case of both Greninja and Talonflame, singles didn't get a huge amount of coverage before being severely nerfed in the very next generation when we headed to Alola. Now moving on to the modern day, we barely see any real presence for Generation 6 within the competitive VGC format, and due to this, they're seen far less frequently in a large amount of content publicised both by the Pokemon Company themselves in the official competitive circuit, or with some of the largest creators like Wolvie VGC, who has been dominating the scene these past few years. This lack of coverage means that they're less frequently seen by many fans, therefore not as familiar and recalled as easily. And you can see the effect that competitive prowess has on the infamy of Pokemon. Just look at Incineroar, the best competitive Pokemon of all time. I definitely think there could be some credence as to this hypothesis as to why they might be considered so forgettable. This hypothesis can't be solely put down towards the fact that it followed Unova, because it wasn't that Unova couldn't be matched or anything like that. It was a huge contributing factor to many people taking a break from Pokemon. Whilst Generation 5 is a personal favourite of mine and has had a renaissance in fan love and nostalgia the past few years, it is one of the lowest points in the franchise in terms of sales and unpopularity due to it being the culprit of the original Dexit. In Pokemon Black and White, you were only able to use Pokemon first discovered in the Unova region until you had beat the game and obtain the national dex. This meant that during your playthroughs, you were forced to use an entirely new group of Pokemon you were totally unfamiliar with, pushing away many longtime fans who joined to come and use their old Charizards and Snorlaxes. This was a huge turn-off for a lot of longtime fans, many of whom also had other reasons for departing the franchise, such as growing up, having more responsibilities, and it just being perceived as less cool to play Pokemon at their big old age. Hey, who are you looking at? Meaning a lot of these people never actually played Generation 6. And this can be true for all sorts of other reasons, such as the fact that it was the first games put on the 3DS and the transition to 3D. A lot of people might not have got 3DS as a kid. A lot of these people were reinducted around Pokemania 2.0 thanks to the global phenomenon that was Pokemon Go in 2016. But this means that Generation 6 remains as a gap for a huge portion of people, even being longtime fans. Perhaps it's the biggest reason as to why Gen 6 is perceived to be so forgetful, because people never really had that opportunity to get to know them in the first place. Now I'm going to address both of my final two hypotheses together. The fourth one being the size of the Kalos dex. With only 72 new Pokemon, it makes it the smallest national Pokedex in the entire franchise. And when you consider there's now over 1,000 of them, this means that there's over 900 Pokemon from different regions. This small pool of just 70 Pokemon doesn't feel as substantial in the grand scheme of the franchise, and less significant in people's memories. And this leads me straight into my fifth hypothesis, that these Pokemon were in fact actually overshadowed in their own game. Part of the reason why the dex is so small is because there were a total of around 50 megas introduced in between both X and Y and ORAS. These megas are unfairly not considered as part of the new additions or the Kalos dex, due to being extensions of pre-existing Pokemon. Unlike how in Generation 4 we had Magmortar, Electivire and Rhyperior introduced as new regular evolutions, new Pokemon that are attributed to the Sinnoh region and the Sinnoh dex. However, these Mega Evolutions don't quite get the same treatment in Kalos. Rather than being a credit to the Kalos dex, they unfairly overshadow and actually detract from the perceived value of Kalos' Pokedex. None of the domestic Pokemon can utilize this brand new gimmick, bar Diancie, who was unobtainable at the time, and then once you add 40 new shiny toys that are far more powerful than most regular Pokemon, many of these megas being given to fan favorite Kanto Pokemon, it's easy to start to see how people would build their teams without many Kalos Pokemon on them. First of all, you're given one of the Kanto starters alongside their Mega Stone after just the first gym. When you combine this with a mystery gift Torchic holding a Blazikenite and the slew of other popular Pokemon available from earlier generations, like the Trapinch to Flygon line, the Garchomp line, and so on, it's easy to see how people would have actually just left most Kalos Pokemon in the dust. And all of this fan service and ensuring the availability and emphasizing old Pokemon and leveraging Megas to do so can't even be entirely separated from one of my earlier arguments, as it's a likely attempt to learn from their previous mistakes in Generation 5 and course correct, using Mega Evolution to put old fan favourites like the Kanto Pokemon into relevancy again to try and recapture their aging audience. And all of these factors come at a detriment to the rest of the new Pokemon from Kalos, who are sadly left behind. Those are my 5 proposals for why these Pokemon might be considered to be forgettable. Let me know if you have any other reasons or explanations in the comments, but in the meantime, let's have some fun, shall we, and put it to the test. On to the quiz. You're going down. I'm yelling Timber.
Yeah,
unfortunately that's Gen 5, but what's the middle one? Frogadier. How do you spell that? Oh, just like that, I guess.
We've got Fennekin. What was the middle one? I don't remember. Is it PH? Yes. What's the middle one? What's the middle one?
Who's that Pokemon?
I keep wanting to say Fletchinder, but that's completely different. Well, actually, that is Gen 6. Actually, I'll do that.
Is that one? Oh, what's Big Chungus? What's Big Chungus?
Oh, nah, nah.
What's the name? 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 Why can't I think of Big Chungus? Nah, this is gonna do my head in. Diggersby. There we go. There you are. Who's a good Chungus? Okay, okay, let's do the legendaries, because there's not many in this generation. It's just the box art Zygarde and the mythicals. Fossils. Sort of an A's. I feel like that's pretty solid.
Meanwhile.
Oh,
I wanna know if you'll be my girl.
boom. There we go. See, I got the weird normal one.
Oh, not Gyarados again. Why? This tripped me up on the last quiz as well. I hate this thing.
A few moments later.
I'm so finished. I've got less than 2 minutes. Many here. Have they counted Kyogre? Okay, they have counted Kyogre and Groundhog. Oh my god, how did I forget about Rayquaza as well?
Well, I reckon that's probably it. 43 out of 119. Not even half. Not even half of them. And a lot of them were quite easy because there was a lot of megas. You know? That is shocking, even for me. Right, I'm gonna kick myself when I see which ones I've missed. Oh, I'll tell you what, Brad's going to be very sad that I missed those 3. Brad is going to hate me. Vivillon, I remember liking Vivillon actually, in Scatterbug. See, I've recently had to... Tyrantrum. Oh no. See, I've recently done the Sword and Shield Pokedex, so having Aromatisse and Swirlix and Clauncher, they're all like in that. Klefki. I keep thinking Klefki is Gen 5 for some reason.
Ah! I forgot so many. Okay, what did I forget? Pancham and Pangoro I kind of like. Swirlix and Slur, but... Okay, it's poor that I didn't get Carbink when I got Diancie. I should have done that. Binacle and Barbaracle is very forgettable. Oh my god, I forgot Mega Mewtwo. Oh, I like Mega Scizor, Salamence, Lopunny. Oh my god, Lucario, the poster child. But you know what? 97, not too bad. Do I think Mark got more than me? No, not really.
Yeah.
Okay, how'd you do? I struggled a lot more than I thought, but like...
I'm not sure I want to say.
I had to sort of change strategies.
You had a strategy?
Okay, so what was your final score?
It was very, very low.
How low?
I've learned something about myself today, and
What's that?
I don't know Kalos at all. If you had to guess, where would you say?
52.
It's less than half. I'll say that.
Well, 52 is less than half.
So it is. I got 43.
Whew.
So I completely
Wild.
didn't get any of the swords, which I was like, you're gonna hate me for that. I didn't get Tyrantrum either. I didn't get Tyrantrum. I love Tyrantrum, but I didn't get it.
I'm well aware 2 mates is hardly a representative sample, but we can draw some useful insights from it. I think I've been largely right. I performed relatively well, but I still forgot a few despite the smaller deck size, with much of my struggle coming from simultaneously considering both native Kalos Pokemon and Mega Pokemon designs alongside each other, which provides some support for my hypothesis regarding how these Pokemon are overshadowed. Meanwhile, Mark's, shall we say, underperformance sort of plays into my third hypothesis. Whilst he didn't hate Gen 5, far from it, he still has far less knowledge around this generation due to taking a break around this time period. Another thing that I didn't consider when hypothesizing about these breaks was that people who took extended breaks from, shall we say, after Gen 4 to then after Gen 7 and then getting into the Switch era, they would have missed out on several generations. So whilst they might have seen these Pokemon in the newer games or in Pokemon Go, they might know the Pokemon, but it's understandable that they may have struggled to identify them as specifically being Pokemon from Kalos. And perhaps because of this, these middle generations have less distinction than some of the earlier generations and some of the later ones. So overall, we can conclude that there are many reasons why the Kalos Pokedex is easily forgotten or at least perceived to be so. However, we would have to do some further comparison with some of the other generations to determine whether it really is the most forgettable of the Pokedexes.
I know what we're gonna do today.
Unfortunately, the true answer will just have to wait. And if any of you guys tried out the quiz, let me know how you're getting on down in the comments below. And whilst this video is releasing, I'm sure you've all just got your hands on Legends ZA and a new adventure awaits. And hopefully plenty of memories for both your own and the Dex's sake. So, let me know how that's going, and until next time guys, peace.